into, guys, is a local story to me. And again, I'm sorry. I don't think you guys mind that I talk about where I'm is like that. But where I'm is, they doing a lot of shit here where I'm is, where you is, right? And the conversations around police reform continue to be ongoing. Politicians on the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm gonna stop using the left and right framing because there's definitely right. I don't know who the fuck is a left politician out there. I loathe to call any of these Democrats on the left because they are not leftists. They are at best moderates and centrists. Really center right is what the 21st century Democrats are. But anyway, Republicans and Democrats alike all claim that police reform is possible. Police accountability already exists. And if it doesn't exist, well, then we need to provide the police billions of more dollars in order for them to get the proper training. I guess at a location such as Cop City, but regardless. But there was an initiative introduced here locally where I am, Montgomery County, Maryland, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. Montgomery County is an interesting place. It's very affluent. And it, in my opinion, I mean, it's pretty diverse relative to its affluence, right? There's a lot of everybody in Mo County. There's a lot of white folks. It's a good amount of black folks, good amount of Asians, good amount of Hispanics. Like I like Montgomery County. It's a little pricey, but it seems like a very lovely place to live if you decide to live in the DC suburbs. So anyway, one of the most progressive, I would say, council members for the Montgomery County Council is a brother named Will Jawando. Now, listen, I listened to Jawando because he has always set forth some very good progressive legislation for the county council since he's been elected. But it doesn't hurt that Will Jawando is finer than a motherfucker. I'm sorry. Will Jawando, every time Will Jawando pop up on TV, I'm like, shh. Councilman Jawando is speaking. Y'all be quiet. Councilman Jawando has some new legislation to set forward. I want to listen. Shh. Y'all be quiet so I can look at him clearly. Y'all be quiet so I can stare at him. Anyway, not to objectify the councilman per se, but I support this piece of legislation that he has introduced, and it's not a novel piece of legislation. I'm gonna play the package from WJLA Channel 7 here, so we can look at Will Jawanda for a minute. But basically, what he is proposing is that the police stop doing minor traffic enforcement, meaning if there is a license plate askew or something dangling from the rearview mirror, or your registration ticket is expired, or you have a busted headlight or tail light, these would no longer be permissible offenses for police to pull over drivers, right? Which makes perfect sense, because as is per usual with policing, American policing across the board, regardless of where you are in the country, all of those little bullshit reasons are justifications for pretextual stops, right? You catch the black or brown driver with the busted head or tail light. That gives the police an entry point to further search the car to try to find contraband to plant contraband, to find some other shit to fuck with niggas about, right? At the end of the day. So it is that. So the pushback coming from Montgomery County Police is predictable, but it's not the only place where this has happened. Because I support the councilman and other similar minded legislators who want to reduce the amount of engagements that police have with the public, because they understand, well, there is no public trust there. In lots of communities, there's never been public trust between the communities and the police. But the police they don't want to stop pulling over niggas. Okay. Like they don't want to stop pulling over niggas because they understand that that's basically their job. So I want us to get a quick little primer from Channel 7 and Councilman Jawando. Yeah, let me not be too thirsty because this is a whole ass married man. But just because he married don't mean he ain't fine, right? He ain't stopped being fine just because he got a wife. And congratulations to his wife because girl, you did fantastic. Gone. But anyway, this is a good piece of legislation. Let me get focused. I'm sorry, my bad. You guys know who would I be if I was not both complaining about white men, or not just white men, white people. I'm sorry. If I were to stop complaining about white people and objectifying men, I wouldn't be Kim. I would not be Kim. So anyway, we'll queue up that package from WJLA Channel 7. And I want you guys to peep this and let me know if something similar has been either introduced or enacted where you are, because this seems to be a progressive direction that localities are going towards to reduce the shit that police can pull over motorists for. So let's take a look at this package.
Lessons, Zoe, according to an audit of police department data, drivers in Montgomery County are more likely to be pulled over if they are black. There is a council member who says fixing that is more important than tickets for minor offenses.
Look, I'm an African-American man. I'm not immune to any of these things.
Will Jawando remembers right after high school, Montgomery County police pulled him over for minor infractions more than 10 times in 1 year while he was working for the police department.
I started wearing my police ID around my neck. It helped, but you shouldn't have to have that.
Tuesday, in his role now as a county council member,
but there's more we need to do.
Jawando introduced a bill that would prohibit county police from stopping drivers for low-level offenses like a single broken taillight, expired tags, or tinted windows.
Or like, a flag from your country or whatever. Again, people have these things all the time, but who's pulled over for them?
According to this 2022 audit of Montgomery County traffic stops, people of color are disproportionately more likely to be pulled over. It found about 30% of all traffic stops and 43% of all searches on traffic stops were of black drivers, in a county where only 18% of all adults are black. Jawando believes those numbers would improve if police needed a more serious reason to pull people over.
I think it's a win-win to help build community trust and also focus our police on the most urgent traffic safety and crime prevention issues.
But Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones tells WUSA 9 Jawando's bill is, quote, bad legislation and will make Montgomery County less safe. He says the data is flawed because it's based on census numbers, not the driving population. Jones says if the bill passes, it, quote, will have a negative impact on morale for our police officers. Now, this bill would not change an officer's ability to pull someone over for a more serious offense, reckless driving, speeding, DUI. And if a person gets pulled over for that and they have a minor infraction, they can still get a ticket for that minor infraction. This bill is set for public comment on June 13th. We'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Let me tell y'all something. To be real, Will Jawando should be the fucking governor of Maryland, not goddamn Wes Moore. Okay. Will Jawando has actually got a legislative record out here to stand on as the at-large member of the Montgomery County Council. Wes Moore wrote a book and is Oprah's homeboy. That nigga ain't passed shit. He ain't passed shit. He ain't wrote shit. He ain't, anyway, that shit just irritates me because I'm like, anyway. And Will Jawando was finer. Anyway, that should not be a standard by which we elect people to public office. I'm just making an observation. So there's that. So you guys see, Marcus Jones is the Montgomery County Chief of Police, a black man. Marcus Jones has been a police officer for many decades. And Marcus Jones knows that even as a black police officer, that the main duty of cops, their main role, their main function is to keep niggas in line, to keep niggas in check, not to stop crime, not to keep the community safe, to keep niggas in check, period, point blank. I want us, Will, do me a favor, pull up that article. Who is that? WESA FM. Is this the NPR station out there in Pittsburgh? This similar sort of thing has happened in Pittsburgh, where the Pittsburgh City Council back in 2021 actually did, in fact, pass an ordinance that would preclude police officers from pulling over drivers who violate 8 minor traffic offenses: expired registration, license plate askew, et cetera, et cetera. Well, back in January, the Pittsburgh Police Department has been instructed to resume enforcing minor traffic violations like an expired registration tag or an poorly secured license plate, despite a 2021 ordinance preventing them from doing so in the absence of a larger infraction. See, guys, and keep that up there for a minute, Will, because what the Pittsburgh police have done is that they have usurped the will of the people. We've heard that's happening a lot lately. That's interesting. That happens in a democracy. That usually happens under fascism. But funny how the will of the people is being continually usurped. We're seeing this in Atlanta with Cop City and here in Pittsburgh because the Pittsburgh City Council wanted to prevent the disproportionate traffic stops that black motorists in Pittsburgh specifically were experiencing. Now, the Pittsburgh City Council, in passing this ordinance in 2021, actually based this off a similar ordinance passed in Philadelphia. Infinite content. How's that working? Are Philly cops not pulling niggas over for busted headlights, or Philly cops said, "Fuck that shit. We still we still on that bullshit. Fuck a law. We don't give a fuck about the law. We give a fuck about keeping what y'all niggas in check." Accurate. That is correct. In this article, it goes on to say, according to Pittsburgh police, black residents make up about 22% of the city's population, but account for 42% of all traffic stops in 2021. And at the time, I don't know if this man has been actually appointed the police chief. Do we have any Pittsburghites in the building? In January, he was acting chief Thomas Stragnecki, Strangreeki. I'm gonna work on that. Okay. Stranggeeky, whatever. He said, hold on, let me find the quote because I think this is very important. Okay, so this is what he said. Stranjicki told WESA that another reason for the reversal was to boost morale among the city's police ranks. He said that he's received steady feedback that the ordinance is preventing them from doing their jobs. Class, what did we just say the police officers' jobs are? Don't write it out because YouTube will hold a comment. Quote, this is what Stranjecki said. He said, the officers who are employed here come here for a reason, and that's to enforce the law, Stranjecki said. I thought it was imperative that I send out some strong messaging to the officers that are still here on the police force that you can do your job, you can enforce the law. Enforcing the law. Now, according to this piece, the Pittsburgh Police Department has been shrinking in size. And some even say that the forces are stretched. So critics of the police reversal of, the city council imposed ordinance, critics say, do Pittsburgh police really have time to be pulling over people with busted headlights and expired registration tags? Like, if the focus is on crime and public safety, then how is enforcing these minor traffic ordinances so vitally important to police officers doing their job? It's not. It's not. Because these are pretextual stops. These are pretextual reasons that the police use to specifically target black and brown motorists to try to catch them doing something. And if police apply that same amount of enthusiasm as determination, if they apply that same amount of will to pulling over white motorists, chances are they'd find a lot of shit. Did y'all know that white people be out here riding dirty? Did y'all know that? I knew it. Guns, drugs, what you want? People in the trunk, they got it. The white drivers, they got it all. And if the police pulled over white people at the same rates that they pull over black people with the same amount of enthusiasm, and I'm using enthusiasm sarcastically here, if they did that, you'd find a lot of the white people are doing a lot of shit out here. But no. To keep white people in check is not the point. It's to keep black folks in check. And that's the whole point, guys. The idea of police reformation is an absolute joke. It's a farce. You can't reform an institution that is resisting reforms all up and down. And the police at their very root know what their role is. They know what their mission is. They know what their job is. And that is to target racially black and brown folks for criminal and punitive nonsense, to try to put niggas in jail. That's the point of the police, not to keep the community safe. That's nonsense. Because if that was the case, then then the community will be safe because we've totally spent enough money for the community to be safe, but the communities are never safe, no matter how much the police budgets are, no matter how much the police as an agency receives relative to other city funded agencies, depending on where you are, compared to public health, compared to public education, compared to public works, all kinds of shit. The police get the most money out of everybody. And that's why the quote unquote crime rate is where it is, because of the misappropriate priorities. We want to prioritize locking people up, not putting them and getting them the services that they need. Will, did I put something on the doc from the appeal.org? I meant to do that. Maybe I didn't. Hold on. Because there was a piece in the appeal that actually caught my attention. I meant to put it on the doc. I can't say for a fact that I did. But I did not. So the appeal.org, that is, guys, and I apologize for not having this handy, but I looked at it earlier. They did an examination of the LAPD data over the past few years. Back in 2015, I believe it was the LA City Council themselves passed an ordinance to try to make sure that people who are experiencing mental health crisis would not be necessarily locked up for, I guess, acting out in public. And they have found, the appeal.org found, that in fact, the amount of people who were mentally ill or experiencing a mentally health crisis, those people have been locked up at an exponential rate by the Los Angeles Police Department. There are so many more people in jail now in Los Angeles County with mental illnesses than there was before this piece of legislation that passed was meant to address police doing exactly that. And I don't mean to point out the obvious, because sometimes some of this stuff is revelatory to me, and not necessarily revelatory to me in this moment. But at the end of the day, there needs to be a collective awakening, a wokeism, if you will, that the police are not keeping anything safe. They do not promote public safety. You have to point to me to the evidence in which says that more police on the streets, more funding for police equals less violent crime, less quote unquote property crime. The statistics aren't there to support that, but the statistics are indeed there to support the reverse. That when you put more money into making sure that people have secure housing, when you make sure that their levels of public education are adequate, when you make sure that they are fed, when you make sure that they have health care, these are when the community's outcomes turn out for the better. Not when you further over police and over criminalize people who are simply just trying to survive and live through their own traumas. And I just want us to just be clear, and not us to be clear. I think we are actually quite clear. But I know we have some liberals in our circles. I know we have some good old Democrats in our circles. And people would say, well, at least the Democrats are talking about it. The Republicans don't want to do anything about it. Well, the Democrats do an excellent job. Well, no, not so excellent. They do a job of talking about it. But when you pull back the curtain and look at their policies and look at the kind of things they support, most importantly, what they support with their budgets, with their money, it is the police state. Fucking Joe Biden just doubled down on that shit, standing with House Republicans to make sure that DC's revised criminal code does not get enforced. And as Jacqueline Luqman taught us this morning on the Remix Morning Show, even though the DC City Council did a very deliberate and intentional job of trying to reform the 120-year-old DC criminal code, it doesn't do shit in terms of truly reducing the amount of people who actually go to jail, or for the mandatory minimum sentences for so-called violent crime. Fucking DC City Council Chairman Phil Middleton was on TV just a little bit ago, basically anyway, saying that the revised criminal code act is not at all soft on crime. He said that the DC mandatory minimum sentence for carjacking is in fact more harsh than Tennessee, which there was a Republican Tennessee senator who was leading the charge in the Senate to make sure that this disapproval resolution gets a Senate vote, which it probably will tonight, even though DC has withdrawn the bill doesn't matter. These Republican and these Democrat adjacent Republicans, um, who are they want to send a message that they are not quote unquote soft on crime. But what they are, in fact, is soft on solutions. Because the 90s, if anything, and I'm only talking about the time that I've lived through, but you guys know we all are in about the same age range. The 90s showed us, dog, like you can build all the jails you want, you can fill all the jails that you want. People's situation did not change. The crime rate, so called, did not change. When you incarcerated all these folks, all you did was create a new tier of under citizenship, of second and third class citizenship. You made things more difficult for people's families. You made things more difficult for their communities. You didn't address what even drove them to do the things that they did, and you certainly didn't address the amount of crooked ass cops that put a lot of innocent people in jail for all kinds of things. For all kinds of things. So the only solution, guys, is to burn it down. We have to abolish the police state. We have to abolish the carceral state, because I can't see how this can get better by doing the same old shit. And Joe Biden and the Democrats are actually, with the assistance of Republicans, they're all hand in hand here. They're trying to walk us back to 92. All this rhetoric I'm hearing about crime and violent crime and the rise on crime and what must we do about crime. I'm like, we about to get another crime bill, y'all. They about to put another 100,000 cops on the streets. The George Floyd justice and policing. What was that? Who said anything about that? Says the Democrats. We remember that. What was that? Who was George Floyd? Thank you so much for your super chat support. Who is that? Commuted. Thank you so much. You said I had to explain hypocrisy. Hypocrisy wasn't a form of government. Who would you have to explain that to? Right. Hypocrisy, Lord have mercy. Where does that fall between a constitutional republic and fascism? A hypocrisy democracy? We don't have no democracy. We absolutely have hypocrisy in spades. NYPD did that same dumb shit, didn't they? I don't think Rich the God is in here, but shout out to Rich the God. Shout out to all the New Yorkers. Who was in here? Imani, who's in here from New York? Remember when they ruled that stop and frisk was illegal? Was it the Supreme Court that ruled that? 2011, 2012, somewhere in there, 2013. There was a Supreme Court decision about stop and frisk. And NYPD said, cool, we won't stop and frisk maybe for a week? You want us to stop frisking for what? Maybe 2 weeks? and then NYPD was back to stopping and frisking niggas all over again. So what does this tell us? The obvious, that we do need community control of the police. But this is where I sort of run into I won't say a conflict per se, because, for example, what Councilman Jawando has proposed is a good idea. The problem is, if it passes, are the police going to adhere to the shit? And at the end of the day, they don't have to adhere to it, because who's going to make them? In Pittsburgh, who is making the Pittsburgh police adhere to the city council passed ordinance? Nobody. Nobody. The police run America, everybody. The police and the military run this country. The corporate lobbyists run this country. The oligarchs, the billionaires run this country. We, being the majority of the folks in this country, do not have a proper say in the way that our lives are governed, not only by the government, but by the capitalist interests that are protected by the police. So what we going to do? We going to barbecue or we going to mildew? I don't know. I say let's barbecue. Burn this bitch down.